Hello and welcome to the third episode of Standard Room with Breakfast. We delved into our platform across the more than 120 million reservations processed each year, and the number one room type was standard room. And the number one extra that the guests added on was breakfast, hence the name Standard Room with Breakfast. I'd like to introduce our guest for today, Gopu Menon, who is the EVP of Revenue and Distribution at Highgate Hotels. Hi, Gopu. How are you?
Hi, Leah. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us on
Thanks for
Standard
having
Room
me.
with Breakfast. Gopu, let's get started. There's lots to talk about today. So I would
Yeah.
love to start at the beginning of your career. I'd love to get a deeper understanding of your career journey. So I'd like to travel back to one of your earliest roles, which I believe was the Taj Mahal Palace in South Mumbai.
Okay.
So I'd love to hear about what that property was like, what your role was like back then, and obviously what that taught a younger Gopu.
Oh, well, that was way back when, but yeah, I mean, it's probably the most memorable hotel experiences of my life. It was back in 2001, so 23 years ago. I got picked up from hotel school as a management trainee by the Taj Group of Hotels. And after 2 years of training, I had the fortune of being posted at the Taj Mahal Hotel at the front office department, where I did, jobs. I kind of moved out of the property as a front office manager, but before that, I've done night audit and night duty manager. And what a place! I mean, I think it's still an epitome in terms of hotel product, services offered, and just the whole, 125 years of history now, with probably every possible dignitaries, politicians, musicians, or movie actors that walked through that door at some point in time in life. So it was a
Amazing.
special experience, and the learning was phenomenal.
If you were to go back in time, and take some of the technologies and some of the ways of working today, like what would be the one thing you'd want to take back with you, and how would that change your role back then?
Um, I think there is a sort of a sense of instant gratification in today's day and age in everything we do. It's not just us, the generation, that's
Mm,
coming to take over my jobs, etc. Uh, I just feel that back in the days we were a little more patient in what
mm,
we did with technology. We gave technology the opportunity to make mistakes, learn, correct itself, and wait for another product that will evolve to eradicate that mistake and come up with something better. There was always something look forward to. But here, I think today's day and age, there's a sense
mm,
of impatience and that sense of gratification that runs through our DNA now. I mean, you
yeah.
go, it's the age of Instagram, Netflix. I mean, you and I have sat in front of Netflix for hours not making a decision on what to watch, right? So we have choices. We have a variety of choices to pick from. I think I wish we could bring back a time where we deeply integrated with technology that could make decisions faster and just relied on it in a
Mm,
positive way, that use technology as a way to really solve our problems and not ask technology questions on what can you do better tomorrow because you're not working today. I mean, with AI and especially in revenue management, I think we're going to delve into it
mm,
in at some point in time in during the course of the conversation. Machine learning it's called learning.
mm.
It's learning takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. So you got to give it that time to learn and emulate what you would do before it actually does what it's supposed to do. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
we just have to be a little patient.
Yeah, it's definitely a changing time. So look, we talked about revenue management. You touched on it, so let's go there. So if we were to fast forward, then, so we've obviously heard about your amazing start. It would have been such an amazing experience. But if we fast forward to today, you've obviously got 20 plus years of experience in revenue management. You've witnessed the field evolve so much. So if you were to look ahead, what emerging skills and competencies do you believe it will be essential for the next generation of revenue management professionals?
Again, I think goes without saying some of those skills, analytical skills, is critical to this game because we are wired to deal with numbers, and so the ability to uh, consume large data to make decisions based on data. Sort of a, we are kind of known to be binary. So if you have an argument with the revenue manager, you better go to the room with numbers. Don't go with gut and I feel and he said, and those things don't work. So come with a good stack of numbers, and we'll have a qualitative discussion. I would say I think having that patience and resilience to help technology evolve and learn. That ability to have trust in technology. I think it should be a quality a future revenue manager should embrace. I think above all, the ability to tell a story, which is critical in all walks of life today. I think you can put in a BI, a Tableau could tell you a good visual story, show you all sort of graphical representation of your last week's performance. But to articulate that over a call or in a meeting, to articulate the success of a store of a hotel in a presentation to a future ownership group, or when you are making that pitch to manage or buy the next hotel, I think that's a skill that someone has to really work on, because you can present a huge 20-page deck, but to tell that story is a craft. It's an art. I think that's something which comes over a period of time. So I would say work on that. It'll help you a long way. I think it's very undermined, but it really works well, particularly today where in-person meetings are so much more valuable than it used to be.
So we have to become storytellers, and I guess we're all salespeople ultimately, Gopu. But
don't you agree? I mean, we're always selling, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We certainly are. So you touched on Tableau. You touched on some of the other sort of automation tools that perhaps you find beneficial today. But how, if you were to give some advice to future revenue managers, like what else should they be turning their attention to drive more strategic growth and innovation?
Have a strong sense of data. I would say from a skill standpoint, learn strategic skills that will help you understand big data. I don't know if coding is a skill that's required, but and an understanding of it would have a qualitative discussion with a technology partner, because in hotel industry, I think one of the challenges that we are faced with is we built these legacy systems which we are trying to integrate with each other as we evolve. So we have these PMS is kind of largely managed by I would say 2 or 3 big players in that. We call it booking engines, or call it channel managers. How do you make them all sing and work together and create sort of an environment where you have a connected distribution system where the seamless flow of information between PMS, CRS, CRM, so that our primary focus is to understand the people who walk through our door a little better. Have a persona to that personality or the nationality or that guest, and sell better to that audience to get a look. So I would say, and a monetizing mentality is another trait that I would always look for in a future revenue manager. If I give you a space or a room or an additional amenity in the room, how can you convert that into an incremental value for the building? So, having that mindset, and I don't think these are something that can be taught in college, but, I would say, think with that hat on, with the monetizing hat, and it'll help you be a better revenue manager than a guy who cannot. So
let's just talk for a moment on sort of distribution strategies. I know Highgate, of course, has a wide range of properties. So how do you approach creating a distribution strategy that's tailored to a specific property? So what are the factors that you kind of take into determining the best way to reach certain geographic locations and segments?
Location. So, location. I think the market determines the locations who you sell to, right? For example, if in New York City, we understand the DNA and behavior of every feeder market into the origin market. let's take New York City for an example. It is, you have January through December. Q1 is a soft month, but there is a genre of travelers somewhere in the world that loves New York in winters. So Brazilians love to travel to New York in winter. So understanding that is critical. So you activate all your marketing, sales, all your distribution efforts to countries that organically travel towards New York in January, February, March. You don't try to sell a large group conference in January. Good luck if you get it. That's great. You don't try to lure a European to travel in January because it's so that distribute. I think we consider our properties a subset of the market, and some of the hotels are a subset of the subset, which means if you are in West Village or East Village in downtown part of New York City, you are now narrowing it down by 3 different filters. And who's that traveler that goes in there? Try selling a parking package to a hotel in East Village because nobody wants to get in there with a car. So we understand. We look at a geo-origin traveler is largely dependent on the market, airlift, seasonality. There are multiple factors that kind of add to that. But our strategy is very much dependent on the market we operate in. We let data drive that decision. So we look at the property itself. So we have a different. We take pride in running a Hilton Garden Inn in Times Square with an average occupancy of 99.7% around the year. That's because we really take advantage of the Hilton ecosystem, New York City market space, and every segment that hits those different quarters in the year. So we adapt the property to different market segment, different clientele as time changes. So and the other would be we have direct business as part of our DNA. So for our independent hotels, we kind of build that into all the revenue managers, revenue analysts in the system that and we take pride in running solid double-digit numbers from our direct web channels across our portfolio. And we do that by really having that in the DNA of every revenue manager that works with us. And so our focus on asking the right questions to the vendor or whoever operates that digital marketing platform for you, making sure you are in the know of what is going on in that world. So I think we kind of have different approaches for different properties, city versus resort. We operate hotels in Hawaii, which has a huge reliance on Japan. Now, Japanese yen is at a 38% decline to US dollars for the last 3 years. Now, we understand that, and therefore there is a reduced dependence of Japanese guests on Waikiki. So we had to pivot. So how do you fill those rooms using, historically, I mean, for the last decades, we had almost 30-40% of the market filled by Japanese guests, which just went overnight. So how do you kind of replace that? But Waikiki still runs the same occupancy as 2019. So the whole market pivoted. So that's so we just find new ways to make it work. So,
and do you think there's like a specific big distribution trend that you're seeing right now, or that you're kind of excited about, or is it just kind of staying consistent, more of the same?
Great question. I do have one trend that I've seen. I think those experiential traveler you must have heard about, and that's something that's been discussed. That destination agnostic, time agnostic traveler who goes and puts in a destination, and the website or the source tell you when to travel to what destination. Say, for example, Airbnb and short-term rental is a classic example of that. So, or you can go to Airbnb during the pandemic, took out the dates factor, where you put in a destination or you put in the driving distance and it'll tell you where to go. So I want to go with my family for a getaway 3 hours. That's the time I have. I can go to upstate New York. I can go to deep down in New Jersey, somewhere in Philadelphia or in DC. So I have choices. And so that I think that experiential traveler was never in our radar. We always went date, arrival date, departure date, destination. These are the 3 key elements that required for us to give an output. Now we don't need those elements. We can give an output without those 3 key elements, which we relied on from time unknown, right? So I feel that alternate distribution is very, very key. Now, nobody goes into Airbnb to look for a hotel room, but we have a case study in place where we have successfully emulated Airbnb listing for a hotel on that platform and converted that into revenue. So how you do that is majority of the Airbnb listings are for multiple occupants, 6 people, 7 people. Try putting 6 people, 7 people on any other marketplace and see what the results are. They'll ask you to buy 3 rooms at a time. Some of the website will tell you no results. There is no accommodation available for your search. Those are the kind of responses you normally get. But you combine multiple rooms and make it one listing that can accommodate 8 people, which is essentially a combination of 3 rooms, but fulfilled in one transaction. That is a transaction. That is a possibility. And then you kind of speak about the safety around a hotel, cleanliness and professional housekeeping, security, 24-hour personnel. You don't have to pick up a key from under a rug or meet someone in an alley who may not give you a key or whatever. All that is demystified. You're walking into a professionally clean, safe environment to stay. So so we found unlocked some alternate distribution, and I'm super excited. I was in Japan in March. I think the super apps are going to be critical. I think Asia has figured it out. I don't know if it's kind of found its way into Australia, but the WeChats of the world, the kind of transaction that are taking place is completely mind-boggling.
Yeah, it's
Exciting.
definitely, yeah, very exciting. I'm equally excited by all of that on the tech side. So Gopu, this has been so insightful, and I could honestly talk to you all day, but I think we're going to run out of time shortly. But before we do, like we've talked about, the importance of data. We've talked about the importance of staying current, staying on top of trends. We've talked about, technology. We've talked about all sorts of things that are going to be important, not just for today's revenue manager, but certainly for those up and coming in this space. If you were to sort of distill this down as advice for these up and coming revenue managers who are just starting out, what would you kind of distill that to? Is there kind of a top 2 or top 3 that you would want to really leave our listeners with?
Can I kind of combine that with what I would love a technology partner to do for hospitality?
Yes, please,
so,
please.
Perhaps you can rephrase that question if you want to, but I love to talk about how we can get more from technology, because revenue managers are revenue managers. They'll continue to come in, but I think they're going to be dependent more and more on technology of the future. And so I would like to talk about technology that will make better revenue managers, because the batch that's coming in to replace my job is totally reliant on technology. That's because I come from an era where we did not have any. All we had was extranets of OTAs, back ends of booking engine, and the front end. We used to copy paste rates from an Excel sheet onto the extranet and wait for it to refresh, and then realize that, oh my God, I put the wrong decimal. It's $26 and not $260. Yeah. By then, I had 25 reservations and at $25. So I'd love technology to build a new future of revenue managers. And I think we are in an era where automated pricing and inventory management is going to be a norm. So I would love for to make more intuitive products that doesn't require hours of training to execute. So if you look at the revenue management system, PMS system, any system, hospitality systems out there, it requires fair bit of training because the jargon's used. And why? Why does it have to be called inventory? Why does it have to be called integration and interface? And just simplify it. Just let everybody understand it, and let's have a conversation about it. So tomorrow when I ask an automated system, I'm going away on weekend, make sure you keep an eye on the rate. It's a United Nations General Assembly weekend. Make sure you watch the Tuesday carefully. It should be able to do that with some sort of a finesse. So I think make intuitive technology that requires less and embrace automation. I would say the other one would be, I think our products in hospitality is very templated. So you go to a select service, this is what you can expect. You go to a full service, you can expect select plus a little more. But consumer behavior is changing. I may travel as an individual business traveler to a hotel that has a bar, a restaurant, and room service. But when I go as a family, I don't mind having a grab and go and not have a bar, but I need more space. I need two beds. I need bunk beds. So how do you define product mix that resonates to a larger audience than just define products based on what you consider as norm? So I think
Mm,
tech providers should give us enough data to design better product that's more malleable and adaptable based on consumer behavior trends rather
mm,
than we rely on technology and data points to design new products of the future. So that's one. I would say I think personalization is going to be a conversation that we're all going to have in 2025. And I don't think the way when you open my website from Australia, it should look the same when I open a website from New York, based on
mm,
based on what the computer and the internet knows of you. You have a persona. The internet knows that I am a father of two living in New York, in New Jersey. I am of Indian origin, and a lot of things. And then all that put in a big box, it defines that
mm,
persona, leads me to a bunch of products that I'll gravitate towards more than you. And if I
mm,
am looking for a vacation with four people, it immediately understands that I'm traveling as a family. So it should have the image and the copy and the content that comes on the website should not be a guy in a tie or people serving, people
mm,
at a conference room. It should be, a tossing a ball or someone playing in the water. So I'm engaged. I think personalization is going to be a thing of the future. So offering more platforms to facilitate deeper personalization and that engagement is going to be critical for us. And I think a responsive technology platform is something we all can appreciate because
mm.
chatbots have taken over a lot of them. Case number and how you respond to those case numbers, and most of them are harvested to an off station facility. So that first-hand responsiveness is very critical because hopefully there'll be a time where we don't have to call the tech company often, but when we call, it's critical. So,
Mm.
um, so yeah, though, I mean, that's one thing. If we can achieve that through technology, I think I think revenue managers will automatically be better professionals of the
Mm.
future.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Gopu. This podcast is called Standard Room with Breakfast. So it's
Yeah.
customary for us to ask our guests one final question at the end of each episode. So here it is. When you travel, Gopu, what room type do you book? A standard room or something else?
Oh, well, I think I've answered that question in some parts of this interview, but I'll say it again. Luke and I had a conversation a while ago, and standard room. Oh my God, that is kind of the the way hotels have been represented. Standard room has become the brand ambassador for hotel. I think a lot of chains have kind of broken that shackles by calling it the wow room, the wonderful room, or the petite room, or the city room, or escape room. But whatever the naming convention is, unfortunately, that is something that the distribution channels really take up and sell. That room, that price point associated with that room, becomes the representation of this beautiful building that you have and all the layers of room type that you have under the standard. So
Hmm.
you may have a room with an ocean view with balcony in Hawaii, but what people see first is standard queen, standard king, standard two double beds, standard king without any frills. And then by the time they get to the nicer room, they don't even know the existence of it. It's a scroll fatigue to get to those room types. So I think there has to be a correction somewhere where the I think Expedia has dabbled with it where it kind of looks at your previous behavior and says suggested room for you. So that's a breath of fresh air. But I would love to see some dynamic representation of those room types based on a persona. So if I am putting in one person, it should pick up my history of I love to stay in a queen or a I don't care about the bed type, but I'd love to have a coffee machine in the room for sure, and I would love to have great air conditioning and blackout blinds because when I'm traveling in business, it is hardcore. We
Yeah.
travel for 48 hours. We hang out till late. We got very little sleep. That has to be qualitative. We have to wake up with a cup of coffee. So I would go with the standard room or whatever it comes with. It comes with these amenities. When I'm
Yeah.
traveling with family, it comes with its own. So I would love for technology to adapt and give me the
Mm,
room depending upon the parameters that I input while searching for that accommodation.
I like
So
it. I like it. So we'll call this a standard room for Gopu based on the
my
personalization,
standard
the
room, I
tech.
would call it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I love it. All right, listen,
Yeah.
Gopu, I think we're at time, but I just want to say
Yep.
a massive thank you. I've really enjoyed our time together, and I'm sure our listeners have also really taken a lot from today. So, thank you so much for joining us,
Thank
and
you.
we hope to hear from you and have another chat in the future.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, and I look forward to bumping into you in one of those conferences.
Indeed, I do as well. Thank you, Gopu.
All right. Thank you. Have a good morning. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.